Is Michael Brazil, and I'm here with my men Sia and Joel, and we are breaking down the Genesis Open. It's going to be great. It's going to be fantastic. Joel and Sia are going to break down everything you need from a DFS and betting standpoint. If you haven't already, please smash that like button. Just smash the hell out of it. Something about a bell. I was told today there's something about a bell with YouTube too, so figure that out. Us at Win Daily Sports, at CNajad, at DraftMasterFlex, at Michael Brazil1, WinDailySports.com/chat. 7 free days in that expert Discord chat. Sia, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm good. I think Joel and I might be fighting though, because I don't know if you saw my fighting words on Twitter, but I'm a little frustrated because it's been like 10 days.
Yeah, I did see that. It's honestly pretty disrespectful.
Well, I mean, 10 days, it's not a short amount of time. It's 240 hours. That's quick math. 24 times 10. You just add a zero, folks. But the point is, speaking of adding zeros, Joel hit for 80K like 2 weeks ago. A couple weeks before that, he hit for 100K. And it's like dry season all of a sudden. Like, I haven't seen any screenshots. It's been a full 10 days, maybe 11 or 12, honestly. Yeah. I didn't do the math because I didn't want to be super disrespectful. But, like, let's go, guy. I think this is the weekend. And by the way, I distinctly remember the Genesis Invitational from last year. I did really well. So I'm kind of excited. Last week didn't go that great for me. There were a couple guys like right on the number that missed the cut. HV3, Bo Hogue, who I actually had in a couple bigger lineups. Siwoo Kim, who I had in a bigger lineup. They all sort of failed me just right on the number. They just missed it. So I'm actually excited about this one. I'm feeling pretty confident. It's just such a full field. So it's going to be a lot of, you're going to have to just kind of push guys out of your pool that you normally would like. But I'm excited to hear Joel's opinion too, because I know he's going to win six figures this weekend. Positive.
I mean, listen, I apologize. You're right. I mean,
apology accepted.
Yes. Well, actually, better. I don't accept it.
Better. If I'm not making at least six figures every other week, then I'm failing not just myself and my family, but the Win Daily family. And
that's the thing. Yeah.
It's not acceptable. Yeah. So
I'm a little disappointed you put us after your real family, though. So,
when I say family, it encompasses all.
Okay.
It's all.
I like that. That's nice. I'll accept that apology.
My family's listening. I don't mean that I love you all. So that's
exactly. That's all that matters, and we love you too, Joel. Don't worry about that. One of these days, you'll hit for, I don't know, $1 million, and it's going to be pretty cool. I'm excited just to say that I did a podcast with that guy, only a couple days before he hit for $1 million. That's going to be my claim to fame. But as Sia said, we have this incredible Genesis Invitational. It should be a blast. I mean, we're coming up to about a year from the start of this pandemic. So there was fans last time we were here. I'm sure it was an absolute blast, and we'll see what happens. I'm excited to check it out. Again, if you're on YouTube, just hit that like button. If you're listening on the podcast, 5-star review. Look at that. You just helped us. Oh, hey, we got someone in the chat. What's up, Andrew? It's going great. How are you? S-Guy. Where's S-Guy? He's not in there yet. Let's start breaking it down. Oh, he'll always hear. He's crushing it. Love them. So let's start breaking it down a little bit. Sia, what are we looking for at the Genesis Invitational? Do we need to be long off the tee? I know we're caring about approach. It's usually like the same 3 or 4 statistics, but what are some things that are going to differentiate this course and this tournament amongst some of the other ones that we've been at recently?
Well, it's interesting that you brought up those two metrics first, because those would be the metrics that would be maybe more diluted this particular weekend than, your 50 of the other weekends that we're talking about golf. So around the green game is going to be really important. Putting is going to be really important. Those aren't things we normally emphasize. So this is one of those where I think you need all the tools in the bag, so to speak. I think you need to be good with the short game. I don't think you need to be long off the tee necessarily, but it definitely helps. Approach game is always going to be important. But if you are above average, but not excellent in all 4 metrics, around the green, putting, approach, off the tee, you're going to have a good tournament. But if you're just really good in one of the metrics, but you're just sucking around the green, for example, like, you may end up missing the cut. So I'm looking for guys with well-rounded games. That's the short answer.
That's the long answer, but I appreciate it.
Speaking of, the short answer was the end of the sentence. But speaking of long, okay. This is a longer course, so we should know that. So that's why, if you're longer, it does help, but it's not a critical factor.
Love it. Daniel Berger won last week. He's not a bomber, right? It was pretty impressive. Joel, what are you paying attention to this week at the Genesis Invitational?
Yeah,
nice.
you know, actually, I want to say something real quick. So Burger won last week, and I'm going to shout out my parents. My mom calls me after the show last week, or before the show, and she's kind of like, "Hey, like, who do you think's going to win the tournament?" And I'm like, "Listen, it's a little early in the week for me to make that commitment right now. Like, let me get back to you closer to Thursday, and I'll tell you like who I really like to win the tournament." She's like, "I don't really care that much. Just tell me somebody that you think's going to win." So I'm like, I don't know if you know all the golfers, but Daniel Berger's dad is the tennis pro where my parents live in Florida. So I was like, I know you know him. So Daniel Berger. And so he goes on to win. I'm like, Mom, if you were a gambler, you would love me so much more right now.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Also,
I didn't actually think he was going to win. It was just I was the only one I knew she knew, so I threw him out there and he won. So
let's get his dad on the podcast, though. I can guarantee there is no other podcast out there that is looking to get Daniel Berger's dad on the show. His
dad was like a real tennis pro. He was like,
he apparently, I think I heard this just yesterday. He was ranked at one time the number 7 tennis player in the world.
Yeah.
Well, okay, maybe I take back my last statement, but I'd still like to get him on the pod. That'd be kind of cool. Anyway,
no, but for this week, I'm actually thinking about it a little bit differently than Sia. So he's absolutely right. You know, you want to just get the guys who are making the most sense in terms of form and course history. But I am seeing that I think being long off the tee, I'm going to value a bit more than normal this week. So I am going to have a head on those who are long off the tee when making my builds. In addition to that, as everyone already knows, I'm already overweight on course history. But there seems to be a consistency with course history here, where guys who are good at this course tend to do good over time, do well over time. So that just is like music to my ears. That means I can logically be overweight on course history because we know it's showing, the data is showing that proves to be fruitful. So those are the two major factors for me. If I had to go 1-2, it's going to be course history and distance.
Course history, you're a fiend for that course history, Joel, and I respect it. You never let us down there. So we, as I said, we're going to be breaking it down for DraftKings. We're going to be breaking it down for the sports book. We came close last week, if I'm not mistaken. See, a couple of your guys, they were on the cusp. So I was counting those checks before they got there. But before we get to all of that, we want to say thank you to our friends over at Manscaped. Support for Win Daily is brought to you by Manscaped, who's the best in men's below the waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision engineered tools for your family jewels. And Joel did say that we're a part of his family, Sia. So I don't know. Take that with a grain of salt. They obsess over their technology developments to provide the best tools for your grooming experience. Manscaped is trusted by over 2 million men worldwide. Now that is absolutely fantastic. They have a redesigned electric trimmer, Manscaped Lawnmower 3.0, third generation. Cutting edge. It's like cutting like grass, and we're talking about golf. There's the connection. They have this incredible ceramic blade that reduces grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin safe technology, pioneered obviously by Manscaped. It is premium. Battery lasts 90 minutes. Waterproof technology. Sweet LED light that shows you everything when you're trimming around the green. That's good.
That was better.
That was good. That was
working
good.
Our way up to something.
Yep, I'm figuring this out.
Momentum.
Kind of going as we go. They've also upgraded to a 7,000 RPM motor with quiet stroke technology. And that charging stand is sweet too. It's USB. You can plug it right into your work laptop. Let everybody know what you're rocking with. If you're listening to me right now, I want you to experience it firsthand. Trim your junk. 20% off free shipping with promo code WINDAILY at manscaped.com. 20% off. Free shipping, promo code WINDAILY at manscaped.com. One more time, it's 20% off free shipping at manscaped.com using promo code WINDAILY. Your balls will thank you.
You missed an opportunity. You said stroke in the middle of that.
Oh,
and
son of a bitch.
really
Right.
fired away there.
I'll get it. We're getting better at this, guys. We're getting better at this. We appreciate you guys kind of sticking around. Let me workshop a couple of things. I think that part is very nice. All right. Well, let's rock with it, gentlemen. I mean, we have a very clear number one here. A gentleman who was supposed to be in our tournament last week, Dustin Johnson. He ended up not being there, but he's here this week. Most expensive golfer, 11-3, hands down. I think that's important to note. He also has the best odds to win it at plus 550. So very, very short odds. A couple other guys in that 10K range, Justin Thomas, Rory McIlroy, John Rahm, and Bryson's back. Sweet. Nice to see you, Bryson. So, Sia, we'll start with you. How are you feeling about this 10K, 11K range?
I hate to start this way, but I really like Dustin Johnson, and that's like, you're like taking the favorite in football or something, or you're taking the public bet, and I just think Dustin Johnson is so superior. Like normally I would say, hey, you're splitting hairs here, and you kind of are in this elite range, but I really think Dustin Johnson is far and away right now the most consistent player really in every facet of the game, whether it's, off the tee, around the green, putting, you put it all together. And I really think DJ outclasses the other four guys in this range. So I don't want to get into him too much. I will say his price is reasonable. And by the way, his course history here, looking at it now, 10th, 9th, 16th, 1st. That's not like out of this world outstanding, but it's obviously some of the better course history you're going to find here. So he checks that box. He had that week of rest, but when he was overseas, he won that tournament. I mean, he's just been on fire. Obviously, the Masters. There's just everybody else is outmatched when it comes to DJ. The 11,300 price is not cost prohibitive in my opinion. It's what Cantlay was, I believe, last week. So if you were able to get Cantlay in your lineup, what's interesting is that if you were able to get Cantlay in your lineup last week, it was kind of weird because the 6K range last week was really bad. Well, this week, you get the Cantlay price in your lineup, the 11,300, which, of course, I'm talking about DJ. But you go down to the 6K range, and there's plenty of guys, or the low 7K range, or the mid 7K range. There's plenty of guys you can get in your lineup that I believe will make the cut. So DJ's my guy. If I want to do a second place, I kind of like the upside of Bryson DeChambeau. I mean, obviously, what Joel said, if you're long off the tee, that's great. Bryson can get hot with the putter, too. We don't exactly know where his game is, but his history here is also pretty good as I'm looking at it. So that's probably my second place guy. If I was going to fade somebody in this range, it would probably be Rory, because Rory's just kind of been a guy. But obviously, it's not like I dislike Jon Rahm or Justin Thomas. It's just I can't pick all these guys. So yeah. I'll lead with DJ. I'll probably have a couple lineups with JT and Jon Rahm, but it's DJ's my guy.
Remember only a few short months ago where we were making fun of DJ for just being the most inconsistent golfer on the tour, and just how he was constantly like, oh, he just didn't feel like playing this week. It's like, oh, would you look at that? And now he's clear cut number one by far, and it's not even close.
Well, that's sort of what I was making fun of, though, was he shot like back-to-back 80s, and then he sort of left the tournament. He's like, oh, I got a back injury. But then 4 days later, he's in the next tournament. It's like, what are we doing here? I mean, don't get me wrong. I love DJ. I hit that 80-1 shot on him, after a bad Thursday round and won a bunch of money sometime after the restart last year. But yeah, I mean, he's kind of clear cut the guy right now. He's to me, I might be overstating it. And Joel, give me your opinion on this. Michael, you too. I think this might be the closest to Tiger Woods of like the 2000s in terms of like a clear cut number one guy. I mean, back then there was really only a few guys competing with Tiger, whereas now you have a lot more sort of up and comers that are sort of in that stratosphere. But I really think DJ's game is the closest thing we've seen to what we saw, 15, 20 years ago with Tiger.
It's
maybe I'm overstating it. I don't know.
Well, I mean, listen, it's not Tiger because
it'll never be
the closest. Yeah, we haven't seen anything this close. It's I don't think anyone's going to reach Tiger in our lifetime. He's just so dominant. It was absurd. But
Charlie Woods looks phenomenal, and the internet loves that kid.
Charlie Woods.
That's DNA. That's fair. But if you want to, I agree. I mean, if you want to get the closest, I think that makes sense. I don't mean to toot my own horn, but I'm going to absolutely go ahead and toot my own horn. When I first signed up with Win Daily, and I won a big tournament. You guys asked me to go on the SiriusXM show and kind of just talk a little bit about it. And I went on there, and it was right after that tournament you mentioned where he blew up DJ, he went like the 280s, and his ownership level came way down, his price came down, and everyone was fading him. And that's when I said that my first kind of take was he's consistently been a top 5-10 golfer in the world over the last 5 or 6 years. These are the spots where we go back to him, right? Because he's just not going to be this bad consistently. And when he does bring it back, price will back up. Not going to get this value again. And I said right then and there, and since I said that, that's when the tear started, and he just went completely off, and he started winning tournament after tournament. And listen, that strategy, you guys know, I talk about that type of stuff a lot, where I want to find those guys and miss a lot too, right? It doesn't always work, but when it works, right, that's how you're going to hit. And that's where, like, when we're playing GPPs, that's what you want to do, right? And that's actually the strategy I have for this week. So the first thing I'm going to say is I agree. DJ is playing too well to fade. I would say no matter how many lineups you're building, make one at least with DJ. Don't not have him at all. He's just playing too well to just not have any exposure to DJ. I'm going to be playing a lot more than one, but at least make one. Let's have some exposure to him this weekend where you're playing. Other than that, this top range, they're all great, right? You can make a strong argument for any guy in this range of why you'd play them, why you would fade them. So my play for this week, and especially if we're you guys know me, I'm big into the GPPs. I'm playing big tournaments. You're gonna laugh. I love Rory this week. I mean, in terms of course history.
Guessed, by the way, I had that set up.
I figured that was a guess.
I wanted to see if I could get it right. I knew I got it. I know you.
I mean, listen. If you want to look at these top guys and look at course history, Rory probably has the best. He was tied for 5th last year, tied for 4th the year before that. So 2 top 5s the last 2 outings. We talk about being long off the tee. I mean, it's him and Bryson and DJ who are the longest. So, he's going to check that box. And I think my strategy for this top field is instead of randomly picking which one of the best golfers in the world are going to be best this week, let's play a GPP game, right? Let's play ownership percentage. So by come Wednesday night, Thursday morning, whoever looks like we're going to get the best value on from ownership perspective, let's play them because that's going to make us the biggest difference. And there's not a big enough gap between the 5 of these guys to say that this guy should be 40% on that guy 20. So that's how I'm going to play. I'm going to play ownership percentages because they're all pretty close. If I had to rank them, I would go DJ, Rory, DeChambeau, but it's not by a wide margin.
Yes, and you can actually find those ownership percentages with our friend Steven. He's going to have that article come out Wednesday night. So make sure to be on the lookout for that. Sia's article is already out. If you're not paying attention, Sia's article, his initial picks, it's free. You can check it out, and it pretty much always cashes. So rock with it from there. Let's just see. What are Rory's odds to win? Rory's odds to win are plus 1250. You can get Justin Thomas at plus 14 and Xander. Bryson's plus 17. He's pretty far down there behind Cantley and Xander as well. So someone to pay attention to. Joel, well, let's kick it back to you. What about this 9K range? Because again, it looks like somebody from this top tier is going to be in there. If you're playing Dustin Johnson in 11-3, it's going to be difficult to get pretty much anyone else in there. So how are you looking at this range and where are you looking to go with it? Oh, Daniel Berger's out. I didn't even notice that. Party too hard. Good for him. He deserves it.
He's actually, at least not in the last 5 years, he hasn't made the cut here. And coming off a win, I probably wouldn't have been too high on him this week to begin with, but pulling out, it makes it an easy decision. Definitely don't play him if he's not playing. That wouldn't be a very wise move. But in the 9K range, I think you nailed it in saying that if you're going to be playing DJ, it's going to be hard. You might be able to get one guy in the 9K, and then you have to go real low in the low 7s and 6s to kind of fill out. If you're going to play DJ, my suggestion would be to go more well-rounded and maybe go him with a bunch of in the mid-7s, and you kind of propel your team from there. But if you're going to build a lineup that fades DJ, then you can get interesting. And what's interesting here is there's a lot of good golfers. I mean, there's probably 10 to 15 guys here who, I think odds should be under 20-1 in a field like this is really – there's a lot of really strong golfers who could win this tournament. So, listen, would anyone be surprised and the daily clubs if Colin Morikawa came out and had a big week and won the tournament? Absolutely not, right? And we'll see his ownership percentage will be reasonable. Guys like Morikawa, are going to be tough with history because he's so young. He's only played here, so you're not going to get a whole lot. Other than that, tied for 26, I wouldn't put that in his favor or against him, right? He was competitive the one time he played here. I would suspect he'll be competitive again. The problem with Morikawa is if he gets 26 at this price, that's not going to help you too much. So you're going to need, if you're going to play someone in this on these price tags, you're going to do it in the top 10. So my favorite plays from this range, Xander's the best golfer in the 9K range. He easily could have been in the 10K range. So definitely hard. I definitely wouldn't fade him. And if you want to look at course history, he's tied for 23rd last year, 15th and 9th. So it did not great. If you want to just play the best golfer in the 9th range, I would go with Xander. Brooks coming off the win, looks like he might be in good form. I'm not going to be overweight on Brooks, but I definitely have nothing against him if you want to play him this week. Obviously, his last outing was spectacular, and then before that, it's 3 missed cuts. So, when you're playing Brooks in the missed game, and that's why I would say he's a GPP play, not a cash play. If you're going cash, there's definitely better routes to go than Brooks. But if you're going to play him in a big tournament, there's nothing wrong with that either. And then to round out the top, I really like Tony Finau. I think his game should fit this course in that he's really long. You need to be long on this course. His course history is strong. Last year he was only tied for 51, but before that, tied for 15th and tied for 2nd. So he can do it here. He's been playing pretty well. You're not kind of taking a shot on hoping he comes around. You have a good golfer there. It's just a matter of if you can afford these guys based on how you make your builds.
Yeah, Jordan Spieth and Brooks Koepka rocketing into the high 9K is, I think, a little bit of an overcorrection. I think that's what I'm looking for. Yeah, Jordan Spieth has had 2 good tournaments in a row. And
I think it's more of an overcorrection for Spieth than for Koepka because, yes, Koepka
absolutely
is volatile, but, Koepka still won a tournament the other week. Spieth still chokes every Sunday, and he hasn't really fully put it together. And, yeah, he did have 2 good weeks in a row, but there's a longer gap of Spieth not showing up for him to get back in this price range, whereas Koepka, he still has one other than just this recent tournament. He's had showings of being and competing more recently. So Koepka, I can understand this price like Spieth. It's just because he's a name and they boosted him up because he's been playing well the last 2 rounds.
Yeah, and he really only plays, as you said, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and I pretty much called it. I was watching with my grandfather on Saturday. I think he had a 2-stroke lead. I was like, how do you think he's going to choke this time? He's like, I don't know. He's going to. I was like, pretty much. It's like kind of like clockwork at this point. Sia, what about you? What are you looking at in this 9K range?
Yeah, I agree with most of those plays. I think Xander and Cantlay are really, really strong plays, and I think most of the DFS community agrees. So they're going to be way more popular than, for example, like a Brooks Koepka. So while I don't trust Brooks Koepka, I do think it's smart to play him here and there because he is going to be maybe a third of the ownership of the 2 guys I just mentioned. I mean, maybe not a third, but maybe a half the ownership. So at least that's how it's trending right now. So, but Xander and Patrick Cantlay, listen, they've both been really good lately. Really, both of them really good. We're talking about 2nd place finishes, 3rd place finishes on a consistent basis. And then their course history is pretty good here too. By the way, Patrick Cantlay is a California kid, so he's continuing to be right at home. And he performed really great. I mean, if it wasn't for Berger, listen, Berger probably should have won that tournament. I'm not saying he shouldn't have, but 2 eagles on Sunday. If he doesn't have 2 eagles on Sunday, all of a sudden it's Patrick Cantlay and maybe Maverick McNealing battling with him to win the tournament. So the win equity is there with both, even though they haven't really won, particularly Xander. I think the win equity is there because I think it's coming very soon. I mentioned Brooks. I don't know that I like anybody else in this 9K range. I'm not going to be on Tony Finau. I've just seen enough of him, sort of speaking of choking on Sunday. I do think he's a good course fit. I think you could make the same argument about Hideki, who I'm also never on. So it's just one of those things where I'm just going to be in that same sort of Jordan Spieth camp where there's just going to be a few guys that I'm always going to fade because I don't think they're going to meet their value. And Finau just happens to be one of those guys. But Xander, Cantlay, I will pepper in Brooks Koepka. I haven't really decided what I'm going to do on Colin Morikawa. I know Patrick, obviously one of our DFS PGA writers, he's going to be all over Morikawa because that's like his favorite person in the world. But in Morikawa, like he should be good here. But and I think last year he contended, but you can't play everybody. And Colin Morikawa hasn't played in a while. I haven't seen it much from him. So I'll probably defer to Xander and Patrick Cantlay over him.
Remind me, what Colin Morikawa and Daniel Berger, they went to that playoff like really soon after the restart, correct?
The one that Colin Morikawa ended up winning.
Morikawa ended up winning?
I believe so.
Because then right after Berger won or something, I remember they each won very close to each other. So, hey, I don't write the book. I don't write the book. I just read it. That's a pretty good catchphrase. I'm going to use that moving forward. I really like that. Sia, talk to me a little bit more. This 9K range. So again, if we're going to be playing these guys, as you guys have said, the guys in the top tier. I mean, Justin Thomas, Dustin Johnson is $600 more expensive than the next guy. Joel, of course, you're in love with Rory. We know, we get it. It's going to be hard, as we said, to play one of these 9K guys unless you want to go dumpster diving into that 6K range. I feel like this 8K range, and then as you guys have said, the 7K range is going to be pretty full. Sia, talk to me a little bit about this.
Yeah, but no, and I'll talk about the 8K range, but I've already made a ton of lineups, and you can do it. You can do DJ and Cantlay and get guys that you actually like. Yes, you will probably be dipping into that 6K range, but there are guys in the 6K range this week that you can play with some semblance of confidence relative to, let's say, last week. So you can do it. And then, like Joel said, if you pivot off of Dustin and you play, let's say, Rory or Bryson, Rahm, Justin Thomas, that gives you even, more, sort of money to play with. But there's guys in, like, especially in that, like, sort of 6,900 price range, 7,000, 71, like that price range has a lot of opportunity. So you can do the DJ Xander or that DJ Cantlay or DJ Morikawa. And by the way, if you do that, then kind of conversely to what you were just saying, then you're kind of skipping the 8K range because you can't do that. Like I like Viktor Hovland. I'll lead with that. He is one of my favorite golfers on the tour. Every time I play him, it almost always pays off. I think I didn't play him a few weeks ago when he was playing, which ended up being a big mistake because I was fearful of his around the green game. Well, he's made a gigantic comeback when it comes to his short game. So he's hitting it great off the tee. The ball striking is there. The around the green game is there. He has some course. Actually, he doesn't have course experience here, if memory serves. I don't think he played here last year. So 0 course experience. So that kind of hurts him. Remember what Joel said at the beginning of the show. I mean, it does help to have course experience at this particular course. That is a factor that probably matters here more than most courses. But that's not like determinative. I'm not going to say I'm not playing Viktor Hovland because he doesn't have any course experience, because you can't be that hard lined about your stance there. But Viktor Hovland, it's going to be tough to get him in a lineup if you're doing the sort of the DJ, 9K guy thing. But I like Viktor Hovland a lot. He is trending to be very popular, maybe a better cash game play than a GPV play, maybe. As I go down the list, there's not a lot of guys I like. I will bring up my guy, Cam Smith. He really let me down last time. He was great for me at the Masters. The only reason I'm bringing him up, I do think he's better at the harder courses for one, and this does qualify as a more difficult course, but his ownership percentage is going to be very low. I mean, you can pretty much book that. His ownership percentage in this range might be the actual lowest in the 8K range. So again, if you're playing the game theory ownership percentage game, Cam Smith is going to give you a ton of leverage. And we know he's flashed before. I'm not super confident in him, but again, we're talking game theory. We're not talking about my confidence level in him, finishing top 5. He certainly has that potential. Max Homa is another guy. 8,200, I think, is a really good price on him. He's really coming on strong. Like finally, he's, I think, kind of put the podcast, earbuds and microphone down, and he's really focused on golf, and it's showing. I mean, lately, I'm late to the party, I got to admit, because Michael, you remember before Joel, was doing the show with us, I was all over Max Homa at the restart.
Loved him. And
before the restart, and he was paying off. And now I was so hesitant to jump back on, but I think at this price, this is probably the time to jump back onto to Max Homa. Other than that, nobody else. I noticed, Matthew Wolff is down here. The game is just not in form. That doesn't mean it can't be in form. He is a good course fit. Joel might like him, but off the tee, which is his main weapon, he's been pretty terrible. Around the green, he's not good either. So he just doesn't feel like a good course fit here.
Yeah, Max Homa, you were very much on him in the beginning. 8,200 seems kind of expensive. I don't remember his price ever getting up that quite high, but he's the last few tournaments, he's been fantastic. Last week, especially. Waste management was awesome. I think he holed out for eagle, like the last hole of all of it. So I think it looks a little bit better than it was, or maybe that was 2 weeks ago. I can't remember, but either way, hey man, you got that far. What can I say? Yeah,
a couple things about Max Homa. His last 4 weeks, 7th, 42nd, which isn't very good, 18th, 21st, and then 12th before that. That would have been at Mayakoba, so before the break, I believe. But last year here, he was 5th. So, and again, I think he's from California too, so he sort of has that home field advantage. The last 2 years, he's made the cut. Those are the only 2 years I have evidence that he's played here. So 37th and 5th is how he's finished the last 2 times. So he probably likes the course, and he's in good form. It's just one of those things. You're right. The number is a little high, but relative to the other guys around him, I think it's a very fair number. Lastly, I want to mention Joaquin Neiman. I did like him earlier on in the week. I'm kind of cooling off on him now. I think he might be better for an outright play or maybe a first-round leader play, which we'll get to. I'm going to have him in a couple lineups, but my confidence level is sort of waning on Joaquin Neiman.
Earlier in the week, as if today wasn't Tuesday, and yesterday was a holiday, so I don't even know. There was no earlier in the week. Sia, what are you talking about?
Some of us have a show on Monday that we have to prepare for on Sunday night. So this is basically late in the week as far as I'm concerned.
Yes,
I'm 3 days into my research. Let's put it that way.
I appreciate you, Sia. That's why we love you here. Joel, talk to me. Would anyone extra for that 8K range that you want to be on, or maybe fight Sia about? He did have some fighting words at the beginning of the show. I don't know. Maybe this is the time to jab back.
Well, what I will say, I have to agree with Sia on something, because I think this piece is important in that when we look at course history, you can't hold against someone who just doesn't have a history, right? There's no negative to that. They didn't have a chance to play there, so that's not negative or positive. It's just that you just got to use other factors to consider playing them, like Hovland. If someone has missed a cut here 4 times, then you can hold that against them because they've consistently not done well, but nothing at all. It's okay. I would just not consider that as a factor when choosing them. So with course history being said, the most expensive person in this field has won the tournament twice, and that's Bubba Watson. he's the most volatile golfer. He's like only a recommendation ever in GPPs, even though he's won twice in the last 5 years. The last time he won was in 2018. So it's been a few years, and he really hasn't been in great form. So definitely not a high recommendation. I wouldn't go overweight on him. But if you want to get different this week, and maybe you're not playing DJ, and you want to listen, a guy that's won the tournament twice in the last 5 years who will probably not have the highest ownership percentage, I think for GPPs, I think he's an interesting look, an interesting play here. He's going to be long off the tee. You know, you're going to get the reassuring, and he can do well on this course. So I think he's a good way to be different. And like I say, I want to preface my picks with the style, right? Like, he's a GPP player. He's a big tournament. Like, if you're going to play a 10-person, five-man, like, don't play Bubba Watson. There's better plays to do when playing those style. But in a big tournament with a low ownership or potentially lower than some of the other guys in this range, yeah, I think he's certainly a good play. Moving off and just kind of going down the range, I'm with Sia on Cam Smith. I think that's an interesting way to be different also. I think for the most part, what I'm trying to do, if I'm picking guys in this range, I probably want to be different. None of these guys seem to stand out more than the other one. So high ownership here is just something I want to avoid because I think there's better ways to build with stars and scrubs opposed to taking high ownership guys in the 8K range. But yeah, I mean, if you people want to go back to Will Zalatoris here, now that you're getting him at 8,300, I think that's a perfectly fine play. He's been striking the ball really well. And I think that is what is his consistency. We're not going to get any course history, so there's nothing to go off of on that front. Again, that's not a negative or positive. It's just a mute point. And, I think people will be a little disappointed by last week's outing, but before that, he was playing great. So I think it's like one of those things where it's almost like to use that to your advantage that he wasn't so good last week because, the ownership will come down, his prices come down, and now, if he's still shitting the ball, striking the ball solid, then you can make a lot of money off him this week. So
what was that?
I just said he's still striking the ball. So I said hitting.
It was a delicate combo of striking and shooting.
Yeah, that was impressive. That was very impressive. I'm sorry, that was great. Anyway, please
listen. Sometimes
we have fun.
It's okay to make up your own language,
as long as
as long as everyone else understands it, and everyone did. So therefore, completely fine.
Totally fine.
Yeah, for sure. I'll make up some more things before the show's over. Don't worry.
Appreciate you.
The last two, guys, season the 79. So the last play here, I'm with. Wolf's current form is it's just too bad right now to have any confidence in him. If you want to have a small exposure to him in a GPP because he's capable of doing really well at a nice price, I'm fine with that. But I wouldn't go overweight on him just because I would like to see something from him before we start putting a heavy investment into him. But he could be a good way to just get different in a big tournament or something like that. But I am with Sia on Homa. My only concern with Homa this week is not his game. It's a lot of people are coming around to him, and it's going to be. I think there's probably 10 to 15 plays this week that are going to feel pretty high ownership, and he's one of them. Which I would say in cash games, in 10-mans, 5-mans, that's totally fine. But in a big tournament, yeah, I mean, obviously you can win with a chalky play, but if there's going to be 10 of them, you really have to be pretty perfect and precise. So I'm going to just definitely keep a keen eye on ownership percentages heading into Thursday.
I love it. Joe, is shitting the ball a new stat in the model? It can be, Joe. It can be.
Might be.
So, Joe, I actually turned my model up so that shitting the ball is the number one metric, and that's how I won 70K 2 weeks ago. So,
flash in the cash.
How do you like that? Also, I missed this from Austin earlier. See, that shirt looks great. You should wear it every show.
When you're on so many shows, who knows anymore.
Do you have other?
Something
how many other colors do you have? Like other Ralph Lauren polo colors?
Two.
Then why is it always
Two other
the
colors?
black one?
2 other colors, but like a total of like 6 or 7 shirts.
Oh, okay. So you have like 4 black ones.
That's accurate.
Okay.
I'm Persian. All we wear is black, dude. That's just be happy. There's not like an big Armani exchange logo.
Hey man, I just want you to be happy.
Got the greasy hair thing.
Yeah, that's. I didn't know that's what Persian people do. I don't know enough Persian people.
Wow. Well, you don't.
I know.
So.
Thank you.
Joe, by the way, is a subscriber who, speaking of cash, Joel, he actually won some cash last week, which he posted in Discord. So we actually had a lot of people posting at the end of the tournament I was pleasantly surprised because I didn't have my best tournament just because of those guys that just really got cut right on the number. But I mean, it seemed like everybody cashed.
That's what we love to see. That's what we're here to do. Help you win daily. And don't forget now, we have Steven running our showdown sheet, I guess we'll call it. So make sure to check that Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights. He has that updated. Definitely check it in the morning. And he has a couple plays in there to check out. I'm sure Joel is helping him out with this. I actually don't know. I'm just kind of throwing stuff out there. So it's cool.
It's actually, it's going to be probably a combo of me, Joel, Patrick, and Steven, and Charlie.
Chuck, what's up? Big Chuck's not here. I wonder where he is tonight. Hope you're doing well, man. All right, Joel, let's hop down into that 7K range. You got excited to talk about someone at that 7,900 number. So let's get to it, bud. What do you got?
Yeah, one of my favorite plays this week is Kevin Knott. I like Kevin Knott a lot, and one thing that gives me anxiety when building and kind of preparing for the week is when I see a lot of other people writing about golfers, because I'm like, man, I liked him, and now everyone's going to be playing him, and it's going to be any different, and that sucks. I haven't seen anyone really talking about Kevin Knott. So That was my first excitement. I was like, I really liked him. No one's talking about him, which I'm like, yes, this is perfect. This is what I want. And let me now tell you the reasons why I like Kevin Knott. So unfortunately, last year he missed the cut here. Before that, tied for 33rd, second, and then fourth. So 2 top 5s and a 33rd. That's pretty consistent. That's really good. And then if we want to look at his his recent history, he hasn't played the last couple weeks. He mixed the cut at the Amex. He won the Sony, and he was tied for 38th before that, the tournament champion. So, listen, we've seen Kevin Knott when he's striking the ball well, when he gets hot, he's as good as anyone, right? We've seen him put together some really great tournaments, and we know he can do that at this course. And he won a tournament as well as the second tournament before the last one that he played. So, there is always a concern with Kevin with his back. He could pull out of any tournament, after day one and really ruin your lineup. So never go overweight on him because, ruin your weekend. But definitely have some shares of Kevin Knott this weekend. I think he's playable both cash and in big tournaments, especially if his ownership percentage stays low. He has the upside to be top 5 at this price. You can jam him in there with DJ, with some of those other stars, and then I almost like I said, I don't even like calling it stars and scrubs because I'm avoiding the scrubs as much as I can. But you can jam those scrubs and some of the stars and some of the mediocre guys into your lineup, and starting with Kevin Knott is a way to do that. And then going down here, a guy that I haven't seen his name in a while. He looks to me just underpriced in this range is Matthew Fitzpatrick. He just hasn't played in a while, so I think his price has come down a bit. But he's been on the European Tour in January, but he hasn't been on the PGA Tour. He's a good golfer. Right? He could be. We've seen him in tournaments priced up in the high 8s or low 9s. So getting him at this price just seems like a good value, and that's how I'm playing him. Especially in a week where we want to jam in DJ and some of those stars, we need to find these values. And 7,600 for Matthew Fitzpatrick. No one's going to be surprised or shocked if he ends up in the top 20, and that's what we're going to need to do to get that tournament winning GPP lineup. So these are the types of guys that I'm going to be looking at. I think Gary Woodland, right? I mean, he's like this guy who he went on this terrible tear where he was so bad. We're like, what happened? Then all of a sudden he came back around, right? There was that 16th that he had just a couple weeks ago where everyone's like, is he back? Woodland's back. Then he was kind of tied for 40th, that disappointment missed cut. But you look at that missed cut. Like, this is what I tell people when looking at these I guess we'll call them box. Do we call it box scores, scorecards, I guess? Box score. When looking at this box score, it's the 67 on round 2 tells me we can play him, right? Because he needs to put together 4 days without a 76. He's still shooting 67s. So when a guy's shooting 67s, that means he's playing a form of golf that's winnable in DraftKings and DFS. That's what we need here. So that tells me we can go back to him again. He's a GPP play, so I wouldn't have him in every lineup that you build, but he can definitely be in one of those lineups that can help you win a tournament. The world is overweight on Carlos Ortiz. Everyone is going to be telling you to play him. He's going to be super highly owned, which is disappointing because if it wasn't for that, I would be on him too. It makes sense. His recent form is really good. He's in a price that's affordable for what we want to do this week. His tournament history for a guy who's like he feels like he's really coming on now. Like, recent form is the best he's been in a while. He has a good course history here for someone who we look at as a lower tier golfer, tied for 26, tied for 9th, and then tied for 26 5 years ago. So I really like him. I can see why everyone's on him. But it'll just be hard to be too overweight if he's going to be one of the highest owned golfers in the field. So just keep an eye on that. Let's see how that turns out by the end of the week. And then I'm going to stop with one more guy going down to the 7,500 range. And he's probably going to be pretty highly owned too, but Cameron Tringale's been playing so well. His ball striking has been pretty elite. I think that the reason why I'm kind of hesitating a little bit is because I think I said earlier, it feels like this week there's a batch of guys that are just going to be really highly owned that everyone's kind of on that make a lot of sense. And there's all these guys that are in it. So there's like two things with that. You don't fade them. There's a reason everyone's on them, right? They're obviously oil can see something. But if you are playing GPPs, odds are it's not going to be the most obvious lineup that's going to win. So just be careful of how you pick which ones you want to stick with and how you want to get different when building your rosters.
I love it. Tringale is a Sia favorite, so that was an easy one. Sia, what about you? What about the top half of this 7K range? Where are some of the extra guys that you're looking at? Siwoo, he won us some money a couple weeks ago. Wouldn't be angry going back to him.
Siwoo's another nice leverage play, as is Kevin Na, by the way. I mean, when you look at Kevin Na's price and you look at, let's see, Carlos Ortiz, Kevin Na is 7,900, Ortiz is 7,800. Ortiz is already, again, these are initial projections. Let's wait for Steven's article tomorrow, but Ortiz is looking like crazy ownership, somewhere between 50 and 20%, which is just not the chalk I necessarily want to be on. But Kevin Na alternatively is going to be less than 5%. That is a fact. He will be owned less than. So it's sort of like the perfect pivot. And everything he said about Kevin Na from a metric standpoint and a history standpoint definitely adds up. You're always worried about the back, right? But that keeps the ownership down. So that kind of helps you too. If he actually makes it through a tournament, that's sort of like negative mystique about him. Or negative, whatever you want to say about him in terms of, foreshadowing if he's going to make it through 4 rounds. That keeps, Kevin Na otherwise would probably be, 6-7%. If we consistently thought he would make it through a tournament, he'd be obviously higher owned. So I don't know that I'll play a lot of Kevin Na, but I'll play some of them because I think Joel's argument's really compelling. The upper half of this 7K range, I don't really like that much. I mean, I'm always on Cameron Tringale. I'll probably have a couple shares, but I think maybe we're getting to a point where maybe like he's not that consistent. I mean, he is consistent on approach. I mean, he does have metrics that are consistent, but at a certain point, Cameron Tringale becomes Cameron Tringale. So it's one of those things where do you want to be? Do you want to be late to that or do you want to be early to that? So I'll probably only have a couple shares. I am vice president of the fan club for sure, but it's just one of those things. Fitzpatrick, I think, is a really smart leverage play. That's somebody I'm going to have to look into a little bit more in terms of how he's been doing and how much he's been playing on the European tour. But once we get to the 7,500 range, there's a lot of guys I like, which is fortunate for me because the way I've already built my lineups, I kind of have to immediately go right down here after I take like a DJ and a Cantlay or a Bryson and a Xander, or even I might throw Rahm in a couple lineups. But James Hahn, Cam Davis. Cam Davis is going to be really popular, just FYI. But I think Cam Davis has the game to succeed here. Let's see. Off the tee, he's been great. Approach, he's been great. He's been okay putting and around the green, and okay is good as opposed to like really negative, which a lot of people show up with, with negative strokes gained in those categories. His last 4, 14th, 32nd, 3rd, and 31st. He's only played here once. It was 2019. It was a missed cut. It doesn't really bother me. I mean, he's a young up-and-coming player. The Cam Davis of now versus the one in 2019 is vastly different. At least with the missed cut, he has some experience on this course. So I actually kind of see that as a positive. The next guy I like is I don't know if I mentioned him already. I did. Former secret weapon, James Hahn. He's from California. His last few tournaments, or I should say his last few tournaments here, 13th, 14th, 28th. So for a guy in this price range, and normally he's usually in the 6K range, by the way, and it's like the middle of the 6K range. So he's been playing well enough. He missed the cut last week, but 10th the week before when he was our secret weapon, by the way. He missed the cut the week before that, 32nd, 41st. So he's definitely a hot and cold guy, but his track record here indicates that he's actually going to make the cut and be pretty successful. I mean, those last 3 here are top 30 finishes. 2 of them are top 15 finishes. So I like Hahn. I like Cam Davis. I think Sam Burns is interesting. We talked about the Win Daily people were chatting, or most of them at least were chatting. And I know on Patrick's model, I think Sam Burns showed up. I think Sam Burns has plenty of upside. He's not a high confidence play for me in terms of making the cut and, top 10, top 20 necessarily, but he definitely has the upside, the ceiling to do that. I'm just a little worried about Sam Burns' floor because sometimes he's prone to that really bad round. The other guy I really like in this range, and his track record was three other guys I really like. Luke List's track record on this course is really, really good, especially for a guy named Luke List. And if you look at his last few years, a couple of those years, Luke List wasn't very good. In fact, he really hasn't been good until lately. Like there was about a 2-year drought, I think, where Luke List just wasn't good. And yet he actually finished strong at this particular tournament. So I think he's super comfortable here. His recent form is pretty good. His ball striking is good. I think it's 7,300. I think he'll be a little popular actually, but I think he is a bargain there. Again, he has the floor to miss the cut, unfortunately, because he's Luke List, but evidence indicates that that's not going to happen. The other two guys I like, Russell Knox at 7,100. I think he's just a really good price. I think it's good value. Russell Knox is striking the ball very, very well. Not a super sexy name, doesn't hit the ball far, so he won't get a ton of ownership percentage, but he's playing really well. So I think he's a safer play. And then KH Lee at 7,100, he should have pretty low ownership, although I've noticed, some of the podcasts are starting to talk about him. And I got to be honest, I actually got that name from Greg Ducharme from the First Cut show yesterday. I hadn't even considered him, but once he was brought to my attention and the stats were brought to my attention, and don't forget, KH Lee was contending just a couple weeks ago in that Brooks Koepka tournament. And if Brooks Koepka hadn't chipped off, the fairway on 17, KH Lee probably would have won the tournament. And I don't know if you remember, but in the Discord chat, I was telling everybody the night before, hey, KH Lee at 33-1 is really good value. I put money on it. I don't know if anybody else put money on it, but that was my money to win. It just Brooks Koepka went out and just grabbed the tournament. It's just one of those things. But KH Lee has been playing really well. And talk about ownership leverage. I mean, he's playing well. He's played well here. His track record here, the last 2 times, I think it's top 25s in both of them. So at 7,100, with knowing how his recent form has been as well, I think he's a really strong play.
So he's 13th and 25th the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree with you more. I love KH Lee. He's one of my favorite value plays. I liked him so much. I recommended him last week. And
okay, it was. Yep. I remember that. Yep. I was like, wait a second. We definitely talked about this guy. And I couldn't find him and see. I was like, oh, he's right there. But he's already out. And we were like, oh, shit. Okay.
So imagine how much better he can do if he actually plays.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Endless possibilities. I mean, yes. So, I recommend him for sure.
Joel, what about you from this bottom half of the 7K range? What are you looking at?
Yeah, so this is going to be our sweet spot, right? Like I think the play this week is going to be that Stars and Scrubs hybrid where we want to get in at least one of those those top guys and then try and avoid getting too low in the 6K range as much as we can. So there are a lot of guys here that I like. I don't want to kind of spend too much time harping. I think Cameron Davis is underpriced. I don't love him in terms of model-wise, like grading out this week. But I just think he should be priced higher. So in terms of getting a value, he's just a better golfer than where his budget's at. So therefore, I think he makes sense. I like the James Hahn play. I think he makes a lot of sense this week as well. Henrik Norlander has no course history to go off of. But his recent form has been really good. He disappointed at the end of last week a little bit, but I'm not going to get away. His ball striking was really good. I mean, he was hitting the ball really well. There's no reason to get away from him. I imagine he's going to continue to hit the ball really well at 7,400. I think this is a really nice way for us to continue to jam in those high priced guys. JT Poston is another guy who's actually very similar in feel to Luke List in that he's got a good history here where like he historically is not a very good golfer. So like he wasn't very good when he was kind of playing well here. And so like we said, we're a little overweight on history. He's tied for 30th, tied for 28th, and tied for 17th in 2017. So 3 top 30s, and those are his only 3 appearances. Never missed the cut, so he's always competing. And at this price range, I think he certainly makes a lot of sense, especially when you look at his recent form, right? I mean, tied for 11th, tied for 18th his last 2 times out. That's really good for a guy at this price range. So I actually like him a good amount this week. I know it's a Michael favorite. I'm not saying this is a joke. He actually grades out pretty well for me this week as well. Is your old friend? I don't even have to say his name. You already know who I'm talking about. Yeah, I mean, listen. If we're going to be basing it off course history, he was tied for 10th last year. Didn't play the year before that, and then tied for 20th. So his only 2 appearances are in the top 20. He didn't play last week. He missed the cut the week before that. Then he has a tie for 40, tie for 21st. So his recent form is, it's him, right? This is what he is. He's mediocre, and then he has that one tournament where he does really well, right? So 3 or 4 tournaments ago, he had that tie for 21st. At this price, if he gets you in the top 20, even 20th in that range, that's good enough because you're going to get the winner and, in the top 5 or so, those upper prices. So, he can certainly do that here, and he's done it, multiple times. So I like Gucci a good amount. But my favorite play in this range is actually KH Lee. I think he's criminally underpriced. I think he's not a known name. So I think that's why he's down here. But, just look at this recent form. The Farmers, he missed the cut, but tied for second with just 66, 66, 66. That is just music to my ears. Then tied for 32, tied for 19. So this isn't just one-off fluke tournament that he did it in. And then for a guy who we don't really even know that much about, not this big of a name, to also have the course history of tied for 13th, tied for 25th at 7,100, he just makes a lot of sense this week. So I hope his ownership percentage doesn't get too crazy where people get up to him. If he gets up to 15, 20%, that would be disappointing. But if he's under 15%, even at 12, it's still high. I would still like him a lot and getting to him in some of these bigger tournaments.
You were ready to play him last week, as you said. It wasn't even in the tournament. You were excited to play him.
What's
you
funny
were hyping him up too.
I think when he was hyping him up last week, we were still like in the 10K range, and he was like, KH Lee, guys,
I got it.
Yeah, he's not playing. I'm sorry.
I got the play. But yeah, if you liked something you saw last week, right, no matter where he finished in the tournament, you still got to remember to take it forward. So last week he, didn't play. You still liked his form. You still like what you got. Move forward with it. See what happens. 7,100. Anything's possible. So Joel, we're going to hit you again for this 6K range. Again, it seems like it's not as dumpster divey as it was last week. Thankfully, last week it got ugly real quick. See a secret weapon, of course. Whatever, surprise, it did really well, like top 10, not a big deal. But we'll get to him. I want to talk to you, Joel. What are you looking at for this 6K range?
So I actually agree. I think it's not as bad. There's some value that we can find here and that we can put. So I'm going to try and quickly just kind of highlight some of my plays. I think the first one that jumps out, I don't know what his ownership looks like. I imagine it's going to be high. Is Matthew Naismith. He looks great. He's striking the ball really well. I am surprised that they priced him this low. No history to go off of, so we can't use that. But his recent form is tied for 16th, tied for 7th, and I just know he stands out to me especially because from a showdown perspective, he was really he looked so good all last week. He was really striking the ball really well. Is a lot. I'm just really attracted to him this week as a good value play in my lineups. I think in a similar vein, you can go back to Doug Gim, right? I know Sia loves Doug Gim. He goes to him a lot, and he does. He's kind of the same type of play as Naismith this week in that no real course history to go off of, but his recent form for a guy at 6,900 is spectacular. Tied for 21st last week, tied for 37th at the Farmers, tied for 5th at the Amex. Those are 3 in a row that are competing in the 6,900 range. So there's a lot to like there. As everyone knows, if Joel Dahmen's in a field, he's in our pool no matter what, even though there's not much outfield to go off of. It's just because, he's the type of golfer that goes for the stick. He can get you eagles. He can get a lot of birdies. Anytime you have a guy like that, he's worth taking a gamble on, even if it's GPP. Yeah, it looks pretty bad. I see that. But let's take a deeper dive. He does have a 65 in the month. So that shows you that he can still do it. And I'd even say last week he showed improvement. From a showdown perspective, looking at the day-to-day results, his ball striking was improved. He didn't play great, and that's what that's the pill you have to swallow with them, and you have to accept the fact that you might get a 74 out of him one day. But if he gets you 2 66s in that week, that could be enough, especially scoring wise on DraftKings. So Dahmen's always going to be in my pool.
So just a note on Dahmen. So Sia, it feels like every single week has Joel Dahmen to win. And as I told you, Sia, I sent it to my buddies. We all take him. We all ride him. And this last week, it was Friday night. I was hanging out with my buddies and they're just like, hey man, can we talk to Sia? Because Joel Dahmen hasn't made a cut in forever. I don't want to keep giving DraftKings my money. He doesn't even come close. What are we doing? I was like, no, man. The one time you don't take him is the time he's going to win. So if he tells us to take him, just take him. He's made you enough money this year already. And they're like, all right, but why Joel Dahmen? He doesn't even make the cut. So it was a really funny conversation we had.
But I always thought my Joel Dahmen picks were for first round leader. because that's sort of where he fits, in my opinion.
I think he's just been so bad that they've all just been like, why do we keep betting on this guy?
No, he has
been. It's gonna work. One of these days, it's gonna work. It's gonna work. So
I will defend Sia in that. I'm pretty sure.
No, I defended him. Don't worry. I stood up for my man.
I was saying I'm pretty sure it is first round leader, and like for that, it is. It's like he needs one round, and like he is so capable of a 65 round that it's worth the long odds that we're getting on him. It's just worth taking a shot on. Where
worth
it's like
$1. Don't worry, Joel. It's always worth $1.
Guys like Russell Knox, who are playing better than him, right, are less likely to go out and get a 65. He'll probably beat him over the course of 4 days, almost definitely. But that one day, if I debate who had the best one round, Dahmen, right? But Knox is better over the course of a tournament. So that's the kind of difference. The volatility is Dahmen, but that helps for TK scoring.
I am riding and dying with Sia. Do not worry about it. I promise you that. All right. Sorry. That was my funny little Joel Dahmen story. Anyway.
Back to where I was. So there's actually a few more plays. So just to kind of hustle through it, Charles Howell III, great course history. He has a 6th and a 15th, and he hasn't missed the cut in 5 years. Martin Laird, last 2 years, tied for 43rd, missed the cut. So not great. But before that, tied for 9th, tied for 8th, tied for 11th. So that's two top 10s and an 11th, which is really strong for a guy in the 6K range. And then if you look at Martin Laird's recent history, he has 2 mixed cuts, but before that, tied for 4th and tied for 17th. So it's a little bit of a mixed guy. But listen, when we're getting if his recent history was 5, 20 and 15, he wouldn't be priced here. So that's the risk that you gotta. That's where you gotta fit where you want to take your chances. Is it Scott Piercy or Piercy, right?
Yeah, it's Piercy.
Piercy. So Scott Piercy was tied for 17th here last year. If you notice, last week he was striking the ball really well. His current form looks good. He finished tied for 50th, but I think he was playing a little bit better on the weekend. He had a few days. Like say, you can look at his scorecard. He had the 269 to 274. So we just need him to not blow up. And last week, playing Pebble Beach with the wind, like the 74 is more understandable. He shouldn't have as the difficult condition. So I think he can average that, even that out, and have a really solid week this week. So I'll be looking at him as well. A guy that I've been on. So this is an interesting one. This is my last play in this range. A guy that I've been on recently that hasn't been playing for me, but something keeps telling me to play him, and he keeps losing, and now it's coming in again, and now he actually has the course history to back it up. So I'm really feeling really bullish about Sung Kang. Sung Kang was tied for 2nd last year, 64th the year before that, 16th, 22nd, and 8th. So he's a really good course history here. And then if you want to look at his weekend form, I mean, he made the cut last week. He does have a 68. You'll notice he does have a bunch of blow-ups, right? 77, but he has those really low scores. So this is a course where we know he likes. He's done really well consistently here, and he's capable of getting those low scores. If he can put together 4 days, I think he can be a really sneaky play.
It could definitely be an interesting one. Yeah, as you said, you're looking for just got to do it 2 days, right? 2 days out of 4. He's got a 68, 68, 66 in the last few tournaments. So he's definitely showing up to play. Hopefully he can tamper down the blow-ups a little bit. So now we are getting to Sia. Sia's secret weapon is 29-3. Sia's secret weapon is 29-3. What is Sia's secret weapon? Well, thankfully you asked. Sia's secret weapon is a golfer that is under 7,000 in terms of DraftKings price, is under 5% owned, and absolutely smashes the field. Can we add that to like the category? Like what are the things Sia's like? What do you look for? It's like, well, I look for this, and the fact that the dude's going to end up in the top 10. Who, Sia, please tell the people who your secret weapon was last week.
Last week it was Cam Percy, who I believe was top 10. I should probably double check.
I think he was. He was top 10, or felt like he was top 10 the whole weekend.
Yeah, if he faded, it was on the back 9 on Sunday. But James Hahn was the week before that, who actually finished 10th. So, and it was really contending to, I mean, what was it? Was it James Hahn that was 3 strokes up on Xander at the turn on Sunday? And he just kind of like, just
fell apart. He became the $6,700 golfer that he is.
Correct. But with that said, I mean, when your secret weapon is on the back 9 with a 3-shot lead, and he's under 5% owned, and you save the money because I think that tournament he was 6,700. I mean, you just really can't ask for much more than that. The 29-3 number is actually like, I want to be like, yeah, of course it's 29-3, but it's actually like,
it's absurd.
Astonishing.
Yeah,
to me.
It really is.
I don't even understand how that's I genuinely, statistically, I kind of want to know what the probability is there, but I'm not sophisticated enough to do the math.
Steven wrote it. He actually wrote the probability in one of his articles. It was probably within one of those really long-winded jokes that he has that I laugh at them every single time. But he put the probability in there a couple weeks ago, and it was funny. I don't know. It was like a lightning striking you riding a bull, something fighting sharks. It's like some ridiculous thing, but I think it was pretty legit. So.
My plea to Steven and Charlie, who I know is working closely with Steven and the Palo Alto boys that help him out with the ownership percentage stuff, is just give me do the math for me,
please.
Steven, I'm asking you, do the math for me. I want to know what the probability of 29-3 is with those parameters. So thank you. Speaking of Charlie, he has a lineup in here that I honestly think I might have built. Like I might have already put that in, but maybe not, but it might be like off by one guy. I personally love that lineup.
DJ Bryson, James Hahn, Russell Knox, KH Lee, and Michael Thompson.
I mean, I'm going to get to Thompson in a second when I talk about the 6K range. He's Mr. Consistent. I mean, not consistently top 10 or top 20, but he's made 4 out of his last 5 cuts. And he's always sort of in that middle 6K. I think last week he was 7,100 because it was an extremely watered down field. But yeah, Michael Thompson is just one of those guys that sort of is a cut maker. And in this tournament, it's going to be harder for him to make the cut because it's a way more talented field. But his ball striking metrics are there. I mean, off the tee, he's not great. Approach, he's okay. Around the green, he's okay. Putting, he's better than average. He's 34th last week at the AT&T. Then he was a missed cut at the Waste Management, 5th at the American Express, 25th at Sony, 21st at the Tournament of Champions, which actually isn't very good because that was a very limited field. But by the way, in 2019, he finished 7th here. So he can do it on this track. Now, full disclosure, 2020, he missed the cut. But okay, you're getting a guy at 6,700 who has a good recent history and has finished 7th here before. So I think it's one of those guys, you can't lean on him as an absolute cut maker, but he keeps doing it. So I'm just going to write, and it's one of those names that nobody pays attention to because it's Michael Thompson. And it's just like, Doug Gim, great golfer. Nobody's going to over roster him until he gets really, really good because his name is Doug Gim. Same with Tom Hogue. We've been down this road. Chris Baker, they're just not sexy names. So not that I'm a Chris Baker fan, but that just kind of falls into the whole myriad of boring names.
Also, I heard Jim Nance called him Tom Hoagie.
Go on.
That's all I got.
I think some people. I mean, it might be pronounced Hoagie. I'm not even 100%. I always say Hogue.
Okay, we'll stick with Hogue. We'll stick with Hogue. I just wanted to let you guys know. I heard Jim Nance call him Tom Hoagie. Yeah.
He's probably right because Bo Hogue was Hoag, and that's a hard G there. I don't know. Anyway, I like Matthew Naismith too. He will be popular. I mean, he won't be more than 10%, but it'll be in that range, which is a lot when you get to the 6,900 range, obviously. His ball striking, and speaking of Steven, this is courtesy of Steven. Last week, he gained 1.88 strokes per round. That's how well he was hitting it on approach. Now, approach is obviously important here, but there's other things involved. Off the tee, he's going to be shorter off the tee. His around the green and in putting game, his short game is actually, not that bad. So I think Matthew Naismith is a great play. Certainly a great play for cash to jam in some guys from the upper tiers, but probably a good play for GPP too, in spite of the fact that he's pretty popular. I do like Doug Gim as well. I won't have a ton of him personally, but I like him. I don't think I'll be playing Joel Dahman. But I do like him as a potential first-round leader. He's not on my list of first-round leaders, but that's sort of let's put it this way. I'd prefer to play Joel Dahman in Showdown. Same with Tony Finau. I'd just prefer to play those guys in Showdown because I know they can do it for 18 holes. I don't know if they can do it for any more than that. Sebastian Munoz is a guy that fits into that category. He's a good first-round leader play because he can shoot a 75, which sucks, or a 66, or a 65 or a 64, which is awesome. So other 6K plays, I think Scott Piercy is smart. I think he's been pretty good. Certainly a risky play, but he's a good course fit. And there's a couple other guys, but I'm not going to tell you who they are because the 2 guys I'm thinking of, and one of them, actually both of them might be in my write-up, which is free on windailysports.com. We don't usually do this. I'm not really trying to get you to go on the site if you're listening and you're not already there.
Go to the site if you're listening. Just go to the site. That was
going to be the next thing I was going to say. I don't normally do this, but if you go to the site and you read the free article, you're probably going to land on the secret weapon. You just kind of won't know it. And then if you go on the /chat or whatever you do to sign up, which is 7 free days, you'll literally see and get confirmation tomorrow night as to who the secret weapon is.
I love it.
So I'll just leave it
WinDailySports.com
there.
/chat. WinDailySports.com. Check out Sia's article. WinDailySports.com /chat. Get Sia's secret weapon. WinDailySports.com. I was going somewhere with it. Win a bunch of money with us. At Win Daily Sports. Win a bunch of money with us.
Yeah, we should work on that. We should work on that last part.
I'm doing what I can, Sia. Sorry I'm not, all professional and shit like your other shows that you're on all the time.
By the way, can I just say a little cross promotion here before we get to the first round leaders and the outrights and anything else? But the NBA show you do is awesome. Whether it's I don't know. Are you always doing it just with Nick, DFS?
Mostly.
Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha.
Adam and
I don't know if
Brian
the HNB. I don't know if the HNB people are involved sometimes. Okay. It's a great show. The information is like really good. And I say that as a guy who doesn't play a lot of NBA DFS. So if you're kind of like not sure if you want to come around to NBA DFS, I think you should be dialing into that show, which you guys do daily, right? On the
every day, channel? Yeah, every day.
Okay,
5:45. Ghost is incredible. You only said that because he was talking up Sia today. He was talking about how great he was and his secret weapon and all that stuff. So we appreciate it though.
That's 90% of why I said that. The other 10% is it's legitimately a real show.
No, Ghost is incredible. That dude knows so much. The model has been just on point this year. I pretty much lost like all my bets today though, so that part's not great. But hey, you win some, you lose some. Hopefully you just win more. All right, Joel, talk to me. You got any good bets for us this weekend at the Genesis Invitational?
So is this a generic any good bets or a specific first round leader?
As I said, I lost a lot of money today, Joel, so I just want to win some. Give me whatever you got, buddy.
Okay. So my first play is a first round leader play. I'm going to go with my guy, Sung Kang. We're getting him at 125 to 1. Love those long odds. This is a guy who's done really well here at this course. So I think he's my play. If you are looking for your own plays, think something to look at. If you want to look at guys who've consistently done well here, even if they're in that lower tier, right? For one round, they can definitely get like a really high score. So he definitely fits that mold. So that's my long shot first round leader play. Another interesting to look at when looking at first round leader is because there's so many top tier guys, and because it's not 4 days, it's just 1 day. You're actually getting pretty good odds on some of the top guys. So this seems like a week where if you want to take one of the favorites to be the leader of the first round, it's probably one of the better weeks to do it. Like you can get 28 to 1 on DeChambeau to be the leader of the first round. And he does that sometimes, right? Where he comes out hot and has a great round 1 and then falls apart day 2 and 3. And it kind of looks like after day 1 that there's no way anyone can beat him. And then all of a sudden you're like, what happened to the guy we saw day 1? So he's a guy that happens to sometimes. So he could be an interesting play from a first round leader perspective.
I love it. Yeah, I could put a couple bucks on Bryson. Tony Finau 33 to 1. Patrick Cantlay 28 to 1. I mean, those are pretty sweet odds. Sia, what do we got?
So
what are you thinking?
We're doing first round leaders then. Yes.
No, we break the news with first round leaders. Do you want to do outrights first?
Yeah, let's do some outrights.
Yeah.
All right. Let me start with Victor Hovland at 35 to 1. A little shorter than I like to go. I mean, honestly, this is a super talented field. So it's hard to justify that. But again, it's 35 to 1. And I think Victor Hovland is getting to that elite range. I got to be honest, when it comes to the outrights, though, kind of like what Joel said, this would be the time there'll be shorter odds in the outright market on these top guys than they are on the first round leader. And we've explained why that's the case. But this might be the time to take a Bryson. I believe he was 17 or 18 to 1. That's actually pretty good value. If you think Bryson is going, by the way, he was 5th here last year. I think we established that at the front end of the show, but I like him as a first round leader at that number too. But I think it's a good time to maybe take a guy that's shorter than 30 to 1 odds, but we can talk more about that in Discord. The sort of the longer shots I like I said, Hovland, Joaquin Neiman, 55 to 1. Like I said, I'm kind of backing off him a little bit, but I think that's a decent number. Now I'm just going to go kind of dumpster diving from a number standpoint. Cam Davis at 100 to 1. I just think that's fun. Top 10, he's plus 750, by the way, which is a pretty large number. List and Neesmith. Luke List and Matthew Neesmith. Now, I like Luke List as an outright winner more than I like Neesmith. I think they're going to have to do a lot to win, but List has sort of proven it on this course that he can, whereas Neesmith has no course experience here. But they're both 175 to 1, and they're both plus 1,200 to top 10. I would probably look for a top 20 number if you're actually going to play them, but I think it's fun to play List and Neesmith at 175 to 1. Homa at 70 to 1. he looks like he's dialed in. I think that's a decent number. But as far as the outright market is concerned, I'm not as interested in it as I am the first round leader market this particular week because we have all that at the top. So it's just harder to justify taking a 40 or 51 to shot, 50 to 1 shot.
I'll take a 125 to 1 any day of the week with you. See, Joel, do you have any good outrights?
Yeah, I mean, listen, smart bets, anything more than close to a unit, it's got to be one of the top 20 guys if you're going to take to win the tournament. But if you want to get crazy, I mean, KH Lee is 250 to 1 to win the tournament. Much? 250 to 1.
Woo!
And they get even crazier and a whole lot of fun. And I actually think is the better bet of the two. Is going back to our guy Sung Kang, 500 to 1. 500. 500. Literally put $2. That's all you need to put, and you win 1,000.
You'll love to see it. You'll love to see it, people. That's
you're fantastic. Also it'd probably be nicer for you to donate your $2 to a charity than to DraftKings, but still, it's fun. It's
worth
fun.
It. If I can get like a half a day, if I could just see him tee off earlier than everyone else, and like he goes birdie, and I'm just like, oh my god, Joel, holy shit, you just won me $1,000, 2 holes in. Most of the people I tilt in the wrong way. I want to tilt this way. It's way more fun. All right, see ya.
It's funny you should say that, by the way, because the first hole is actually the easiest hole in the entire of the 18, and it's a very eagleable. It's like the one sort of gettable par 5. So if you are not birdieing, right? I mean, eagle is obviously that's slim regardless, but if you're not birdieing number 1, like you basically lost a stroke to the field. So this is one of those tournaments where you're really actually dialed into make sure that he's actually starting on the first hole as opposed to the 10th when you're looking at it, but. You want to know if they birdied the first hole because that's actually important because the scoring is not going to be out of control at this tournament.
Oh, I love it.
I'll make you a deal, Michael. If at any point of the weekend, he is in the lead of the tournament, and that means birding the first hole and he's in the leaderboard, we FaceTime each other and shotgun a beer.
Deal. 100%. I will take that deal every day, Joel. I appreciate you for inviting me to that party. I cannot wait. See ya. Talk to me. What do we got? Breaking any news this weekend?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna break some news. I really had some trouble narrowing the breaking news down. I have some periphery news when it comes to first round leaders.
Yeah,
so
naturally,
I'll give you 5 names, and the first 4 are the guys that might win first round leader, but the last name I'm going to give you was the guy that's definitely 100% lock it in. And I'm already wavering because there's a couple guys I kind of like just as well, but I got some real breaking news for you. So hold on tight. Let's start. I'm going to go sort of out of order from the odds, but let's start with KH Lee as your first round leader at 100 to 1. I mean, listen, he can put low rounds together, and he has had success on this course. We talked about it. What was it, 13th and 25th? I think the only 2 times he's been here. KH Lee at 100 to 1. He's in good form too. Give me that. James Hahn. He's got great course history here. He's from California. He's in reasonably good form. It's kind of checkered. He's got that 10th place finish, but some miscuts. But he can go out and shoot a low number specifically on this course. He's 90 to 1. Joaquin Neiman, 55 to 1. That guy's got plenty of upside, and he can absolutely take down a first-round leader. 55 to 1, a pretty decent number. Not a guy I would have as an outright, but as a first-round leader, I like him. So that's 3 right there. KH Lee, Neiman, James Hahn, Luke List at 90 to 1. Great track record here. Form is good. He's a good course fit. Luke List at 90 to 1 is a solid number. That was sort of the guy I was kind of debating. Him and KH Lee, I was like, they could be the breaking news, but forget that. Because I have the actual breaking news. Are you guys ready? You sitting down? So the breaking news, the first round leader at Riviera on Thursday.
It is Tuesday, February 16th at 9:15 p.m.
So I'm giving you this pick 48 hours ahead of time because I can see the future. When it comes to golf only, I can see the future. And your first round leader at 80 to 1. He actually had a bad Thursday last week and battled back to put together 3 really good rounds in a row. I love when I see that. His name is Cam Davis, 80 to 1. He is your first round leader. Let's go.
Let's go. Going to be donating a couple dollars to DraftKings this weekend, but I'm going to enjoy every single second of it. Gentlemen, it is always a pleasure. The Genesis Invitational. Thank you to everybody in the chat. S-Guy showed up. What's up, buddy? Glad you made it. Hopefully you can rewatch the show. It's on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, smash the like button. dingle the bell, whatever we're supposed to say there. If you're listening in the audio format, just give us a 5-star review. That's all we're looking for. So yeah, where can everybody find you on the internet?
So I think you ring a bell. I think you ring it.
Dingle a bell.
Okay, that's a thing, I think, as well.
Totally.
You can find me on Instagram at Cianajad Sports or on Twitter at Cianajad, and you can find me and Michael and sometimes Joel on SiriusXM Radio, Fantasy Sports Radio. So check us out there on Saturdays and Sundays.
I'm Sundays, and it's been fantastic. Also in the Discord, windailysports.com/chat. That is how you get See a Secret Weapon. Joel, where can everybody find you? Oh,
listen, Michael, I gotta defend you here. See, you say you don't ringle a bell. First of all, what's the most famous Christmas song ever? Jingle bells. That's exactly what you do to a bell. You jingle them. That's why they made the song Jingle Bells.
Yeah, but I thought he said like dingle a bell. Did you say jingle? I think he used a D.
Debatable.
Thank you, Joel. I appreciate that.
I mean, we'll go back and we'll review the sound. I think
we'll review the tape. But until then, I'm leaning with Joel on this one. Thank you, Joel. I appreciate that.
You guys can find me at Draftmaster Flex on Twitter, on Instagram, sometimes on SiriusXM with Sia, and we'll be in Discord all weekend, getting some showdown plays and talking before the tournament, because I do feel like, and I think what gets me excited about this tournament, just to kind of wrap things up, is it feels like there's some easy guys to fade, right? And we can really narrow down our player pool this week to guys that we really want to play, which makes it exciting because, like, you know, a lot of times we get to a point where there's maybe 4 or 5 guys we like, and then it's kind of like, whoa, we like this guy. This week it's like there's like a player pool of like 15 to 20 guys that we all really like, and we can really get in and focus on. So I'm pretty excited for this tournament.
There you go, Sia. You baited Joel. I think he's gonna shove it in your face by winning another $100,000. You can find me
that would be nice.
You can find me at Michael01, us at Win Daily Sports. Thank you again to our sponsors, Manscaped. Promo code WinDaily. You get 20% off and free shipping. We're actually seeing other people in our little industry here starting to reach out to some of the same sponsors we have. So I think it's a good thing. Clearly it was a good idea. Fuck those guys. Thank you to Manscaped. Win Daily Sports. Win Daily. Promo code WinDaily. 20% off, free shipping. For Joel, for Sia, for myself, for the Secret Weapon, for everybody in the chat, we all hope you make it a very profitable Genesis Invitational. Bye, everybody.
I'll wear a different shirt next time.
Sports. No, please do that.